Hello, and welcome to Woo English. You have probably heard about what is happening in the Middle East. The tension, the threats, the news headlines that make you stop scrolling. But do you really understand what is behind it all? Today, you are not just listening to a story. You are stepping into the real world. A world where one narrow strip of water, just 33 kilometers wide, controls the energy of the entire planet. In this audiobook, you will learn English through story. Calm English, clear English, useful English. You will follow a true-to-life situation. You will hear about oil, power, military forces, and history, not as hard news, but as a human story. As you listen, your English will grow. Your vocabulary will grow. Your understanding of the world will grow too. At the end of each chapter, there is a short quiz. It helps you check your English and helps you remember the story. So listen slowly. Feel the rhythm. Think about the words. This is not just about a strait in the Middle East. It is about how the modern world survives. And what happens when that survival is threatened. Let's begin our story. Chapter 1. The narrowest point on Earth. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine you are standing on the deck of a very large ship. The ship is so big that it takes almost 3 minutes to walk from one end to the other. The metal walls around you are painted dark red. The smell of oil is heavy in the air. It is early morning. The sky is orange and pink. The water is calm and flat, like a mirror. But all around you, in front, behind, and to the sides, there are more ships, dozens of them, maybe more. All moving slowly in the same direction. You are not alone out here. You are part of a convoy. A procession. A long, slow parade of steel and oil moving through one of the most important pieces of water on the planet. You are crossing the Strait of Hormuz. And the world is watching. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow strip of water between two countries, Iran to the north and Oman to the south. At its narrowest point, it is only 33 kilometers wide. That is, smaller than many cities, smaller than the distance between some towns. But do not let that small number fool you. Every single day, between 17 and 21 million barrels of oil pass through this strait. That is roughly 20% of all the oil used in the entire world, 1/5. Every fifth drop of oil that powers a car, lights a home, or runs a factory, it came through here. Think about that. One narrow passage, 33 kilometers, and through it flows the energy that keeps our modern world alive. One corridor, 1/5 of the world's oil. The strait connects two very different bodies of water. On one side is the Persian Gulf, a warm, shallow sea surrounded by some of the richest oil countries on earth: Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Bahrain. Under the sand and rock of these countries lies more oil than almost anywhere else in the world. On the other side of the strait is the Arabian Sea, which connects to the Indian Ocean and from there to everywhere, to Asia, to Europe, to the Americas, to the whole world. The Strait of Hormuz is the door between these two worlds. And there is only one door. There are no pipes that go around it. There are no roads that replace it. There are no trains carrying millions of barrels. Across the desert, there are alternative routes. Some oil can travel through pipelines in Saudi Arabia or the UAE. But they cannot carry enough, not even close. If the strait closes, the alternatives are not enough. The world has one door, and it is 33 kilometers wide. One door, and someone holds the key. That someone is Iran. Iran sits along the entire northern side of the strait. From its coastline, Iranian military forces can watch every ship that passes. They have guns, missiles, submarines, and fast patrol boats. For decades, Iran has used this position as a kind of power, a warning to the rest of the world. Many times, in moments of political tension, Iranian leaders have said the same thing. If we are pushed too far, we will close the strait. The world always listens, because deep down, everyone knows the truth. A closure of the Strait of Hormuz, even for just a few days, would shake the global economy to its core. Oil prices would rise fast. Then food prices. Then everything else. The effects would be felt in Tokyo, London, New York, and Lagos within hours. This is the power of geography. This is the power of a single, narrow passage of water. 33 kilometers. The most important 33 kilometers on Earth. In the chapters ahead, we will explore this world in detail. We will follow the journey of oil from the desert to your doorstep. We will meet the military forces that circle these waters like sharks. We will look back at the moments when the strait nearly closed, and we will ask the question that keeps energy ministers awake at night. What happens to the world if the door slams shut? Chapter 2. Black Gold and the 20% Rule. It starts underground. Thousands of meters below the desert of Saudi Arabia, there is oil. Enormous amounts of it. Oil that formed over millions of years from the bodies of tiny sea creatures that lived and died long before humans ever existed. Oil that is older than the dinosaurs. Today, giant machines pull this oil from the ground. It moves through long pipes, sometimes hundreds of kilometers, to a place on the coast. There, it is pumped into the belly of a supertanker, a ship so large it can carry 2 million barrels of oil in a single journey. The ship leaves the port. It enters the Persian Gulf, and it begins to move slowly, heavily, toward the Strait of Hormuz. This is where the journey of oil really begins. You may not think about oil very often, but oil thinks about you. It is part of almost every moment of your day. The petrol in your car, that is oil. The plastic bottle on. Your desk, made from oil. The medicine in your bathroom. Cabinet, oil was used to make it. The road you walk on every morning. Oil is in the asphalt. Even the clothes you are wearing right now may contain synthetic fibers made from oil. Oil is not just fuel. It is the foundation of modern life. And a huge part of that oil, roughly 1/5 of everything the world uses, travels through one single corridor, the Strait of Hormuz. This is what experts call the 20% rule. 20%. One in. Every 5 barrels. Every day, without stopping, without a weekend off, without a holiday. 20%. Every day, without fail. But who needs all this oil? Where does it go? Most of it goes to Asia, Japan, South Korea, India, and China are among the biggest buyers of Gulf oil. These are countries with enormous populations and fast-growing economies. They need huge amounts of energy to power their factories, their cities, their transport systems. Japan, for example, imports about 80 to 90% of its oil. From the Middle East, almost all of it passes through the Strait of Hormuz. Without that oil, Japanese factories would stop. Trains would slow down. Homes would go dark. China is even more dependent in simple numbers. It is the world's largest importer of oil. Every day, millions of barrels arrive at Chinese ports, most of them having passed through the Strait. Europe also receives oil from the Gulf. So does India. So does the rest of the world, in different amounts and in different ways. The Strait of Hormuz is not just important for one country or one region. It is important for the whole planet. The whole planet, connected by 33 kilometers of water. Now, imagine a barrel of oil leaving Saudi Arabia today. Its final destination is a power station in Japan, more than 9,000 kilometers away. The supertanker crosses the Persian Gulf. It enters the strait and moves carefully through the shipping lanes, the narrow roads of the sea. Other tankers are moving in the opposite direction, returning empty to fill up again. It is like a motorway, but on water, and the trucks weigh 300,000 tons. The tanker exits the strait into the Arabian Sea, then across the Indian Ocean, past Sri Lanka, up through the South China Sea. Finally, it enters a Japanese port after roughly 3 weeks at sea. The oil is unloaded. It is refined. It becomes fuel, plastic, electricity. It becomes part of Japanese life. And somewhere back in the desert, a pump is already filling. The next tanker. The cycle never stops. But what if it did? This is the question that makes governments nervous. What if the strait was suddenly closed? What if one morning no tanker could pass through? The oil stored in Japan would last for only a few months. The same is true for many other countries. After that, shortages, panic, price explosions, economies in crisis. The 20% rule works both ways. It tells us how much the world depends on this passage, and it tells us exactly how much damage closing it would cause. The strait is a gift when it is open. It is a weapon when it is not. And in Chapter 3, we will meet the people who know this better than anyone, the military forces that watch these. waters around the clock, ready for the moment the gift becomes. A threat. Chapter 3. The Powers That Watch. Somewhere in the warm waters of the Persian Gulf, a gray warship moves slowly through the night. Its lights are dim. Its radar is turning. On the bridge, officers watch screens that show every vessel in the area, every tanker, every fishing boat, every shadow on the water. Nothing moves in these waters without being seen. This is the USS Abraham Lincoln, one of the largest warships ever built. It carries fighter jets, helicopters, and enough firepower to start or stop a war. And it is here for one reason above all others, to make sure the strait stays open. The strait is not just geography. It is a battlefield waiting to happen. The United States has had a permanent military presence in the Gulf region since the 1980s. The U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet is based in Bahrain, just a short distance from the strait. Its job is simple but enormous: protect the free flow of oil. American warships patrol these waters every day. Submarines move silently beneath the surface. Surveillance aircraft fly. Overhead, satellites in space watch from above. The United States spends billions of dollars every year to keep this one passage open. Why? Because America's allies, Japan, South Korea, and many European nations depend on Gulf oil. If the oil stops, their economies suffer. And when America's allies suffer, America's power in the world becomes weaker too. The strait is not just an economic corridor, it is a political one. And the U.S. is determined to control it. But America is not the only power watching. On the northern side of the strait, Iran is also watching. Iran has one of the most powerful military forces in the Middle East. Along its southern coastline, the coastline that runs directly beside the strait, Iran has built radar, stations, missile batteries, and military bases. Fast attack. Boats, known as speedboats, sit ready in small harbors. Submarines wait beneath the water. Iran's military strategy in the strait is not to fight a big battle. It is to create chaos. Small, fast boats can surround a large tanker very quickly. A single missile can set an oil tanker on fire. Even the threat of attack is enough to raise insurance costs for shipping companies, which raises the cost of oil for everyone. Iran knows it cannot defeat the U.S. Navy in a direct fight, but it does not need to. It only needs to make the strait dangerous. That is enough. You do not need to win the war. You only need to threaten it. And then there are the others. China has been quietly increasing its naval presence in the Indian Ocean and the waters near the strait. China imports more oil than any other country on earth, and it cannot afford to let anyone else control its supply. In recent years, China has built stronger relationships with Iran, trade deals, military cooperation, diplomatic support. Russia, too, has interests in the region. It sells weapons to Iran. It has its own reasons to see American influence in the Gulf reduced, and the Gulf countries themselves, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, They have their own navies, their own coast guard, forces, their own fears. They are not passive observers. They are players in this game, too. The Strait of Hormuz is perhaps the most watched piece of water on Earth. Every major power has eyes here. Every major power has something to lose. A chess game, played on water, with oil as the prize. This tension has real consequences. In 2019, a series of mysterious explosions damaged oil tankers near the strait. Nobody officially admitted responsibility, but the message was clear: the waters are not safe. Oil prices jumped immediately. Shipping companies changed their routes. Insurance costs rose. The world held its breath for several weeks, and then, slowly, things returned to normal, as they always have so far. But the question that haunts every admiral, every energy, minister, every economist is this: one day, will normal not come back? In Chapter 4, we will look at the moments in history when the strait truly held its breath, and how close the world came to a crisis it was not prepared for. Chapter 4. When the strait holds its breath. History does not always announce itself. Sometimes the most dangerous moments in the world begin quietly. A ship hit by a mine. A captain sending an emergency message. A small fire on the water that nobody expected. And then, slowly, the rest of the world realizes what is happening, and everything changes. The Strait of Hormuz has had many of these moments. Moments when the breath of the world stopped. Moments when a single decision could have broken everything. Let us go back. Let us look at 3 of them. The first time the world nearly lost the strait. It is 1984. Iran and Iraq are at war. A brutal, terrible war that has already killed hundreds of thousands of people. Both countries need money to continue fighting, and money in this part of the world means oil. Iraq begins attacking Iranian oil tankers in the Gulf. Iran responds by attacking tankers carrying Iraqi oil, and then the tankers of other countries too. Any ship could become a target. Sailors going to work in the morning did not know if they would return home at night. This period becomes known as the Tanker War. Between 1984 and the 1988, more than 500 ships are attacked. Oil prices rise. Insurance companies refuse to cover ships entering the Gulf. Many shipping companies stop sending vessels altogether. The strait does not close, but it becomes a war zone. The world watches, afraid, as the most important waterway on Earth turns into a shooting gallery. Eventually, the war ends. Ships return. The oil flows again. But the lesson is learned. The strait is not safe simply because the world needs it to be. The second time, quieter, but just as frightening. It is 2011. The United States and Europe have imposed strong economic sanctions on Iran. These sanctions are punishments. They stop Iran from selling its oil freely and block its access to the international banking system. Iran's economy begins to suffer badly. Iran's leaders are furious, and they respond with a threat that the whole world hears clearly. If the sanctions continue, Iran says, it will close the Strait of Hormuz completely. No ships, no oil. The reaction is immediate. Oil prices jump by 5% in a single day. The U.S. Navy sends additional warships to the region. European governments hold emergency meetings. Stock. Markets fall. In the end, Iran does not close the strait. The cost would have been too high for Iran itself as well as for the world. But for several weeks, financial markets behave as if closure is possible at any moment. The threat alone was enough to shake the global economy. Words, not weapons. And still, the world trembled. The third moment is more recent. It is 2019. In May and June of that year, 6 oil tankers are attacked. Near the Strait and in the Gulf of Oman, holes appear in their metal sides. Some catch fire. The crews escape, but the ships are badly damaged. Nobody officially claims responsibility, but U.S. officials say the evidence points clearly to Iran. Iran denies everything. Then, in July, Iran seizes a British oil tanker, the Stena Impero, as it passes through the strait. Iranian speedboats surround it. Soldiers board the ship. The crew is held for weeks. Britain sends warships. The U.S. increases its military presence. Diplomatic messages fly between capitals. For a short but very tense period, many people fear that a larger conflict is about to begin. It does not. The tanker is eventually released. The sailors go. Home, the waters calm again. But once more, the world has seen how quickly things can change in these 33 kilometers of water. 3 moments, 3 warnings. The strait always survives. But for how long? What do these 3 moments have in common? They all begin with politics, a war, a sanction, a diplomatic crisis, and they all end with the world holding its breath over a narrow strip of water in the Middle East. The strait has survived every crisis so far. Every time, something pulls the world back from the edge: fear, diplomacy, economic calculation, common sense. But common sense is not always enough. And in Chapter 5, the final chapter, we will ask the question nobody wants to answer. What happens the day it is not enough? What happens the day the strait finally closes and the lights start going out? Chapter 5, final chapter. The day the lights go out. It is a Monday morning. Somewhere in the world, a decision is made. Perhaps it is a military order. Perhaps it is a political ultimatum that nobody expected. Perhaps it is a single missile fired in anger that hits a tanker and starts a fire. That cannot be controlled. The exact reason does not matter. Right now, what matters is the result. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. Day 1. The first hours are confusing. News channels report that tankers have stopped moving. Shipping companies tell their vessels to wait. Nobody is sure how serious this is, or how long it will last. But the oil markets are not confused. They react immediately. The price of a barrel of oil, which was around $80, that morning jumps to $110 by the afternoon. Then to $130. Financial traders on screens in London, New York, and Tokyo are shouting. Numbers are moving so fast that some computers cannot keep up. By the end of day one, the world knows this is not a small problem. Day 7. 1 week without the Strait. Petrol stations in many countries begin to run low. Governments tell people to drive less. Some countries activate their strategic oil reserves, emergency supplies kept underground for exactly this kind of crisis. But those reserves are limited. Most countries have enough for 90 days. Some have less. Airlines start canceling flights, not because of safety, because jet fuel is becoming too expensive. A ticket from London to Tokyo, which cost $800 last week, now costs $1,400 and rising. Factories in South Korea and Japan begin to slow their production. They cannot afford the energy costs. Workers are sent home early. Some factories close completely. In the supermarket, prices are starting to move. Not just fuel. Food. Because food needs energy to grow, to process, to refrigerate, and to transport. When energy becomes more expensive, everything becomes more expensive. Day 30. 1 month. This is where it gets truly serious. Japan has used nearly a third of its emergency oil reserves. China has restricted energy use in several provinces. Factories operate only 3 days a week. In India, power cuts last for hours each day in some cities. Oil is now over $200 a barrel. Economists are using a word they rarely use: collapse. Not a recession, a collapse. The kind of economic damage that takes years, not months, to recover from. Food prices have risen by 40% in some countries. In poorer nations, countries that import both oil and food, the situation is desperate. People cannot afford to eat properly. Governments are losing control. There is enormous political pressure on every government in the world to do something. Anything. Military options are discussed. Diplomatic channels are burning with activity. The United Nations holds emergency sessions every day. The world is not just losing oil. It is losing stability. 30 days, and the world is already breaking. This scenario is not science fiction. It is not Are pipelines? Yes. There are other routes, yes, but they are. Not enough, not even close. The strait is irreplaceable, and everyone knows it. So why does the world keep depending on it? Because changing is hard. Because oil is cheap when the strait is open. Because building new energy systems takes decades and costs trillions. Because governments think about the next election, not the next crisis. But slowly, very slowly, things are beginning to change. Solar and wind energy are growing fast. Electric cars are. replacing petrol cars in more and more countries. The world is, little by little, reducing its addiction to oil. Perhaps one day, the Strait of Hormuz will become less important. Perhaps one day, the world will not hold its breath. Every time a political storm passes through those 33 kilometers of water. But that day has not arrived yet. Today, right now, as you listen to these words, tankers are moving through the strait, slowly, heavily, carrying the energy that keeps our world alive. The door is open, for now.